Alfie. This was the book I was telling you about yesterday that I was going to read to you all about Alfie, a little boy your age. He's also got a little sister. His little sister is called Annie Rose. Your little sister is called Sienna. Anyway, Alfie gets in first. He wants to get back to the house as quick as possible after he's been to nursery. One day Alfie and Mum and Annie Rose were coming home from the shops. Alfie ran off ahead because he wanted to get home first. He ran all the way from the corner to the front gate and up the steps to the front door. Then he sat down on the top step and waited for the others. Along came Mum, pushing Annie Rose and the shopping. "I raced you," said Alfie. "I'm back first, so there." Annie Rose didn't care. She was tired. She sat back in her pushchair, sucking her thumb. Mum put the brake on the pushchair and left Annie Rose at the bottom of the steps while she lifted the basket of shopping up to the top. Then she found the key and opened the front door. Alfie dashed in ahead of her. I've won," he shouted. Mum put the shopping down in the hall and went back down the steps to lift Annie Rose out of her pushchair. What do you think Alfie did then? Oh my goodness! He gave the door a big great bang, slam, just like that. Then Mum was outside the door holding Annie Rose and Alfie was inside the door with the shopping, and Mummy's key was inside as well. Oh dear, what's going to happen? "Open the door, Alfie," said Mum, but Alfie didn't know how to open the door from the inside. The catch was far too far up high. Mum looked in the letterbox. "Try to reach the catch and turn it," she said. Alfie tried, but he couldn't. "Can you put the key through the letterbox?" said Mum. But Alfie couldn't reach the letterbox either. Annie Rose was hungry as well as tired. She began to cry. Then Alfie began to cry. He didn't like being by himself inside the house. Just then Mrs. McAnally came hurrying across the road to see what all the noise was about. Oh my goodness. She and Mum took it in turns to say encouraging things to Alfie through the letterbox, but Alfie still couldn't open the door. He's looking a bit sad. I would be sad. "Go and fetch your little chair from the sitting room and then you'll be able to reach the catch," said Mum. But Alfie didn't want to reach his little chair. He went crying louder and louder. There's my Maureen," said Mrs. McAnally. "She will be able to help." That was her daughter. Mrs. McAnally's Maureen was a big girl. Right away she came up and joined Mum and Annie Rose and Mrs. McAnally on the top step. "Might have to break a window," she said, "but I'll try and climb up the drain pipe if you like." "Oh, but Mrs. McAnally said, I don't want you to do that. That's dangerous." Just then, Alfie's very good friend, the milkman, came up the street with the milk. When he saw Mum and Annie Rose and Mrs. McAnally and Mrs. McAnally's Maureen all standing at the top, he stopped and said, "What's the trouble?" So they told him. "Oh, don't worry about that, mate," said the milkman. "We'll soon have you out of there." Looks as though the lock's going to be difficult to break. But then Mrs. McAnally's Maureen had a very good idea. She ran to ask the window cleaner who was working up the street if he could bring his ladder, and then they could climb up to the window. But in between, what is Alfie doing? He's gone to get his chair. He's remembered where it is. Then I think he's going to climb up. Mum and Annie Rose and Mrs. McAnally and Mrs. McAnally's Maureen and the milkman all stood on the top step and watched while he climbed up the ladder. He started to climb up the bathroom window, but when he was halfway up, what do you think happened? Oh! The front door opened suddenly, and there was Alfie. Standing, he managed to reach the catch and turn it. He was very pleased with himself. He opened the front door as wide as it could go, and everybody came in. Then the window cleaner came down from his ladder. He and the milkman and Mrs. McAnally's Maureen and Mrs. McAnally Annie Rose and Mum and Alfie all went to the kitchen and had tea together. And that is the end of the story. He was a very clever boy. Bye for now.